Respected listeners, dear brothers and sisters in faith, today I invite you to reflect upon one of the greatest moments in the history of mankind, the blessed birth of Prophet Muhammad, the final messenger of Allah who came into this world at a time when darkness had spread across every corner of the earth. His arrival was not only a historical event, but a turning point that changed the destiny of humanity forever. Before we speak of his noble birth, we must understand the condition of the world prior to his arrival, for only then can we appreciate the magnitude of the light that he brought. Imagine a world filled with oppression, injustice, superstition, and moral decay. A world where cruelty was common, where the weak were crushed by the strong, and where truth and mercy seemed to have disappeared. It was in this very environment that Allah, in his infinite wisdom, sent his beloved messenger as a beacon of hope and guidance. 14 centuries ago, the Arabian Peninsula was a land of deserts, mountains, and scattered tribes. It was a land without a central government, where tribal loyalty defined a man's identity. But beneath this tribal pride lay a society drowning in ignorance. The Arabs were known for their eloquence in poetry and their bravery in battle, yet their hearts were empty of true faith and guidance. Idol worship had become the dominant practice. The holy Kaaba, built by Prophet Ibrahim and his son Ismail for the worship of one God, had been filled with hundreds of idols. Each tribe had its own deity, and people would travel miles to present offerings to lifeless stones that could neither benefit nor harm them. The pure message of monotheism had been forgotten, replaced with myths, superstitions, and falsehood. The social conditions were equally alarming. Women were treated as property rather than as human beings with dignity and rights. Many families considered the birth of a daughter a shameful event, and some went as far as burying their infant girls alive in the scorching sands of the desert. Slavery was widespread, and slaves were treated with unbearable cruelty. The poor were neglected, and the weak had no protection against the powerful. Tribal wars erupted over the smallest matters, lasting for decades and destroying countless lives. Alcohol, gambling, and immorality were deeply rooted in society. Drunkenness and lawlessness plagued the streets. The moral compass of humanity seemed broken, and the people were trapped in a cycle of ignorance that offered no escape. It was not only Arabia that suffered. The entire globe was engulfed in darkness. In the Byzantine Empire, corruption and injustice had weakened society. The rulers lived in luxury while the common people suffered. In the Persian Empire, fire worship dominated religious life, and the ruling class oppressed the masses with arrogance and pride. The caste system in other lands created divisions between people, stripping them of equality and justice. Religions that were once divinely revealed had been altered, their scriptures distorted, and their teachings misused. The pure message of previous prophets had been lost under layers of innovations and fabrications. The Jews and Christians, once recipients of divine revelation, had fallen into divisions and disputes. The light of guidance seemed to have disappeared from the earth. Humanity was crying out for a savior, for a messenger who could lift them out of their misery and reconnect them with their creator God. It was in this bleak and hopeless age that Allah chose to send his final messenger. In the city of Makkah, on a Monday, the 12th of Rabi al-Awwal, in the year of the elephant, a child was born who would change the course of history forever. This blessed child was none other than Muhammad ibn Abdullah. Even his birth was surrounded by signs of divine mercy. His father, Abdullah, had passed away before his birth, leaving him an orphan in this world, but destined to be under the special protection of Allah. His mother, Amina, described how she experienced a light at the time of his birth that illuminated the palaces of Syria. Scholars narrate that the idols in the Kaaba fell on their faces, and the fire in Persia which had been burning for 1,000 years, was extinguished. These were symbols announcing that a new light had come into the world, a light that would shatter the chains of darkness. Unlike the children of his society, this newborn was not destined to live a life of ignorance or sin. He was chosen by Allah to be the seal of the prophets, the bearer of a message that would remain pure until the end of time. His very existence was a mercy to mankind, a gift from Allah to a suffering humanity. From the very beginning, the life of Prophet Muhammad was marked with purity, patience, and divine protection. He was born an orphan, a reminder that his support would come directly from Allah, not from worldly power. In Arab society, orphans were often neglected and left vulnerable. Yet Allah had chosen this condition for his beloved prophet, so that his heart would always be filled with compassion for the poor, the weak, and the oppressed. After his birth, Muhammad was entrusted to Halima Sa'diya, a woman from the desert tribe of Banu Sa'd, who became his foster mother. It was during his years in the desert that he grew strong, learned eloquent Arabic, and experienced the purity of a simple life away from the corruption of the city. Halima noticed that blessings surrounded her home after the child entered her care. Her animals became healthier, her pastures greener, and her family experienced prosperity. This was a sign that even as a child, Muhammad carried with him the mercy of Allah. When he was only 6 years old, his mother Amina passed away, leaving him completely orphaned. He was then taken into the care of his grandfather, Abdul Muttalib, and after his death, his uncle Abu Talib raised him. These early losses taught him patience and resilience, and they also deepened his empathy for others who suffered. Unlike many children of his time, he did not live in luxury. He tasted hardship, loneliness, and grief, which prepared him for the great mission ahead. As he grew into a young man, Muhammad became known for his honesty, trustworthiness, and noble character. In a society filled with lies, corruption, and injustice, he was called Al-Amin, the trustworthy. People would entrust him with their belongings, confident that he would never betray them. He never bowed to idols, nor did he participate in the immoral practices of his people. While others indulged in alcohol and gambling, he stayed away from such acts of ignorance. His character was so pure and his reputation so respected that even those who opposed him later in life could not deny his truthfulness and integrity. At the age of 25, he married Khadija Ray, a noble and wealthy businesswoman who recognized his honesty and character. Their marriage was filled with love, respect, and partnership. Khadija would later become the first person to accept Islam and support him with unwavering faith. As Muhammad lived among his people, the condition of Arabia and the wider world grew worse. Idol worship was deeply entrenched, injustice ruled society, and wars never seemed to end. The hearts of mankind longed for guidance, even if they did not know it. Jewish and Christian scholars awaited the coming of the final prophet mentioned in their scriptures. The world stood on the edge of transformation, waiting for a light that could pierce the deepest darkness. When Muhammad reached the age of 40, he began to spend long hours in meditation and reflection in the cave of Hira near Makkah. He would retreat from the chaos of society to seek solitude and peace. It was during one of these nights of reflection in the blessed month of Ramadan that the angel Gabriel, descended with the first revelation. Read, in the name of your Lord who created man from a clod. Read, and your Lord is the most generous, who taught by the pen, taught man what he knew not. Surah Al-Alaq 96-1-5. This moment marked the dawn of a new era. The first rays of divine light broke through the centuries of darkness. The prophet, overwhelmed by the weight of revelation, returned home trembling, and it was Khadijah, Ra'ah, who comforted him, reassuring him that Allah would never abandon a man of such goodness. The message entrusted to Prophet Muhammad was simple yet revolutionary. There is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is his messenger. This message struck at the very heart of idol worship and injustice. It called for equality, compassion, and justice for all. It demanded that the strong protect the weak, that the poor be cared for, that women be honored, and that slavery be treated with mercy. It taught that life was not meant for oppression, but for service to Allah and kindness to His creation. But this message was not welcomed by the leaders of Quraysh, who feared the loss of their power and wealth. They persecuted the Prophet and his followers with brutality. Yet, despite torture, boycotts, and years of struggle, he remained steadfast. His patience, his mercy, and his unwavering trust in Allah became a source of strength for his companions and a model for all of humanity. Gradually, hearts began to change. The poor, the slaves, the women, and the oppressed were the first to embrace Islam, for they found in it a dignity they had never known. Leaders like Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, and Ali accepted the message and became the pillars of the new community. The Prophet endured unimaginable hardships, yet he never abandoned his mission. He was mocked, stoned, and forced into exile, yet he forgave and prayed for his enemies. Over 23 years, the light of Islam spread across Arabia, replacing ignorance with knowledge, cruelty with compassion, and oppression with justice. By the time he left this world, Arabia had been transformed from a land of darkness into a land of light. A society once drowning in immorality and idol worship now stood united under the banner of monotheism, justice, and brotherhood. The message entrusted to Prophet Muhammad was simple yet revolutionary. There is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is his messenger. This message struck at the very heart of idol worship and injustice. It called for equality, compassion, and justice for all. It demanded that the strong protect the weak, that the poor be cared for, that women be honored, and that slavery be treated with mercy. It taught that life was not meant for oppression, but for service to Allah and kindness to His creation. But this message was not welcomed by the leaders of Quraysh, who feared the loss of their power and wealth. They persecuted the Prophet and his followers with brutality. Yet, despite torture, boycotts, and years of struggle, he remained steadfast. His patience, his mercy, and his unwavering trust in Allah became a source of strength for his companions and a model for all of humanity. Gradually, hearts began to change. The poor, the slaves, the women, and the oppressed were the first to embrace Islam, for they found in it a dignity they had never known. Leaders like Imam Ali and Hazrat Abu_Talib accepted the message and became the pillars of the new community. The Prophet endured unimaginable hardships, yet he never abandoned his mission. He was mocked, stoned, and forced into exile, yet he forgave and prayed for his enemies. Over 23 years, the light of Islam spread across Arabia, replacing ignorance with knowledge, cruelty with compassion, and oppression with justice. By the time he left this world, Arabia had been transformed from a land of darkness into a land of light. A society once drowning in immorality and idol worship now stood united under the banner of monotheism, justice, and brotherhood. If you enjoyed this story, write ES in the comments so that I can share the next part with you. And if you want me to share more events from the life of Prophet Muhammad with you, then also write YES in the comments. This concludes today's topic. If you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to like and leave a comment, and make sure to subscribe so you can receive all our upcoming videos. See you in the next video. Inshallah. Until then, Allah Hafiz.